Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Justin Holland, the leader of Eguana Technologies, a pioneer in the residential energy storage industry. In 2021, Eguana forged a strategic partnership with manufacturer Power Center Plus to begin producing Eguana's proprietary energy storage systems under the globally recognized Duracell brand. Today, the company is making waves in the renewable energy sector, manufacturing cutting-edge home energy storage systems that rival the likes of the Tesla Powerwall. They are also making their mark in the booming $60 billion US solar market with their single, double, and quad microinverters. In this conversation, we delve into Eguana's unique approach to expanding their sales pipeline. Justin shares insights about their game-changing initiative called Eguana University, where they train solar installers to empower them with the knowledge and expertise to promote and install their products. Eguana is coming off a record-breaking fourth calendar quarter of 2022, where they achieved over $10 million in revenue, a significant leap from the $1.26 million recorded in the same quarter just a year earlier. Join us as we explore Eguana's ambitious plans to boost their sales pipeline, enhance their gross margins, and unveil the next generation project that looks to revolutionize the energy storage market. All right, everyone, enjoy the interview. Justin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
So, as I understand it, you guys have now grown your ranks to over 70 employees. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. It's a big step for the company. Growth in key areas, focusing really on sales, Eguana Cloud development, and some extra bodies in Australia, which is becoming very, very exciting for the company.
Okay, so let's get into the most recent quarter. The company had a record revenue quarter, surpassing $10 million in revenue on the quarter. The big question I think everybody had when they looked at the income statement is, of course, the gross margins. They weren't exactly impressive, would be one way of putting it from a quick glance. What can you tell us about these gross margins? And is this the type of gross margin that we can expect moving forward?
Yeah, the margins, it's a great question. And I know some of the feedback that was sent to me kind of post earnings call was, that we're continuing to point to COVID-19 pandemic on margins. So we did go from a minus 9.6 to a plus 3.8. So we did get a decent margin jump. However, the COVID relationship is not that COVID's impacting today. It's that COVID impacted transportation costs when we invested in the inventory last year. So we were doing spot purchases to make sure we could stabilize our supply chain and continue to build out that product availability and production capacity. So as that flows through our system, when we consume those higher priced components and when we consume the higher priced logistics, that hits the gross margin at the point of consumption. So if we spent an extra 8, 9, 10% on a component 8 months ago, and we use that component in the current quarter, that depresses your margin. That's what we're trying to relate back to COVID. Not that it's impacting our purchasing today, not that it's impacting our freight rates today, that it impacted our costs and our rates a year ago when we were investing in the inventory and doing the spot purchases. As we come through that, you account for that today, which is why we had the depression. Going forward, the good news is we do see coming out of the September quarter a double-digit margin on ESS, which is big news for us. And that's kind of consuming all those high-priced components. They're now coming back into standard cost. So we'll see that. Longer term, we can see development activities that we've talked about with Itochu and 24M on battery specific. That will be a big jump on gross margin. Advanced power controls, we've now identified longer term on a 40 to 50% cost reduction opportunity. Those two sub-assemblies within an ESS system make up about 90% of the cost of the good. So we'll jump into double digits coming out of the September quarter. Longer term, we have development activities that will take much larger chunks of cost out of the product, which will start to take us into those mid-20 range that we've talked about in the past.
In the MD&A, you mentioned that Eguana is building out its operations team. Can you give us some specifics on what parts of the company you're building out this team in?
Yeah, from an operational perspective, a lot of the focus right now is on demand generation. And that's kind of, step 5 of a process that we've gone through. Step 1, build out production capacity. Why do you need to build production capacity first? You have to build the cart before you put the horse in. If you take a look at large national solar installers, if you take a look at the large solar financing companies, the automotive companies, they won't engage with you until you have a specific capacity that you can deliver over an annualized period. So we did the capacity first. Second to that, we went into distribution channel management. You have to have distribution covered in this space because that's the main conduit to the installer. Now, distribution is not open the door. I've got Duracell Power Center and take the product. It's a 6 to 9 month process to go in, get them to understand what your offering is. They take some small orders. They work with those orders with key installers. Then they say, okay, we like it. We're going to stock that product or that ecosystem. Then you have to bring down current inventory positions of what they're holding today to increase the inventory position of your product. The good news is we've gone through that process, call it the distribution vetting process, if you will. We've gone through that now with 3 national distributors. We're in the process still with another 2. So there's 5 total, but it's not open the door, move the product. Once you get to that standpoint, the distributor typically says, I'd like you to train some of my key installers, because the installer creates the pull through or the sell through from the distributor. This is the key. That's the person at the kitchen table talking to the homeowner, or ultimately who's going to buy the product. So when we talk about Eguana University, and think for a moment now that you've got national coverage through multiple distribution companies. We're now building out Eguana University from a module training perspective. And I know we train people in our former process where we did webinars and we put all kinds of information on there. That was not a scalable model, given the fact that there's tens of thousands of installers in the United States. In November, we created Eguana University to start to have a scalable model to train the installers. Now, to give you an idea at the speed with which this is now happening, we launched in November. In November, December, January, we trained roughly 35 people. In February, March, and April, we've processed into our training system over 200 people. So remember what I said. Each time someone goes through training, like bringing on a salesperson, we have a target of 1,000 this year. We want to train 1,000 individual people on our products. By the end of the current quarter, we should be somewhere around 400 to 500 trained installers. That's people sitting at the kitchen table, talking to the consumer, selling our products, which are now available through multiple national distribution. That's the creation of the demand that we're talking about.
How do you establish a relationship with the installer? Does that come from the distributor?
Multiple ways. So we do know a lot of the installers that are out there. So that's one way. Trade shows, that's where most of the installers go to see new products. What are they going to learn? What's coming down the pipeline. Distributors will typically bring in, once they invest in you, they say, okay, you got the production capacity, the product works, I've tried it. They have to invest in training their people on your product. They will typically bring their top installers to the table for us to train. I'll give you an example in Texas, where we were going through a CED branch. They brought a dozen top installers in. We trained them all. Texas is now the fastest growing region that we have. Why? Went through the distributor vetting process, went through the distributor training process. They brought in 12 installation companies. We trained them all. Now we have those people at the kitchen table selling the product. So the key is, how many installers can you train? And again, the message is, the more installers you train, the more salespeople you have in the market.
Another question that I've gotten from a few shareholders after seeing the recent financial statements is the accounts receivable line item. What color can you give us on this?
Yeah, great question. So the accounts receivable is concentrated. Obviously, most of the business is going through with our partnership with DPC. The thing to know about that is most of that happened over a 60 to 75 day period. So it scaled very, very quickly, and it is concentrated because it goes through one partner. Now, a couple of things. We expect that to start to clear itself up over the next 30 to 60 days. So we're comfortable with that. We talk to our partners all the time, so we know exactly where that stands. So I'm not as concerned. I know it's a big number. We know why it's a big number. It's the short-term growth that we saw coming out of December. We do know that the product is moving based on what we just talked about. So we do expect that AR to start coming down significantly in the next 30 to 60 days. So we're comfortable where it is. It's not growing at this point in time, and we do expect that to come down quite significantly as we go forward.
There were some questions on the conference call about the company pivoting. Do you care to comment on that?
There is no pivot. We're putting the pieces together within the strategy that we put together a couple of years ago. The primary focus right now is training the installers. Train, measure, and make sure those leading indicators to the market are growing. That is the partnership with DPC. That's where the revenue is going to come from. We did talk about in the earnings call, VPP and recurring revenue. And this is something that we've always had in the strategic plan. However, it's not one or the other. It's in addition to. So we expect to see self-consumers buy through their local installer who buys through the local distributor. That's set, that's going. However, we've fully integrated the Eguana Cloud, which opens up recurring revenue. We're now in some VPP pilots in the US, Australia, and Canada, which will generate recurring revenue. That's future state. The bulk of the focus right now is US distribution. And of course, we can talk about Europe and we can talk about Australia, but if I just focus on the US for the time being, there's absolutely no pivoting coming from the company, but there are going to be software-driven revenue streams, very small at first. These are still in pilot stages. So we are going to let the shareholders know, yes, we are accelerating Eguana Cloud. We do anticipate being in recurring revenue streams this year. Originally, it was planned for the second half of 2024. And we do expect to see utility pilots come out. Now, how does the utility get engaged through the distribution channel? A utility may say, I have my favorite installer. They're trained by Eguana already. They may still buy from distribution. That's not the big piece of VPP. The piece of VPP and what I said on the earnings call relative to mass adoption was the utility can subsidize the homeowner. So let's say I'm the utility, you're the homeowner. I want you to have an energy storage system on your house that I can access from time to time so that I can manage frequency on the grid. And I know if I manage frequency on the grid, my costs come down on management of that grid. As the utility, I make more money. Because of that, I say to Steve, the homeowner, I'm going to give you $3,000 if you put this system on your house. That's what's coming through VPP. So it's not a pivot from distribution to virtual power plant. It's continue the demand generation through distribution, train as many installers as we can. As VPP pilots start coming in, make sure our technology is in those pilots and active, because that allows the recurring revenue stream. Now, let's say you already had a system that you purchased from your local installer from a distributor. I can still come in and say, Steve, you're in an area where we're putting on this virtual power plant. We noticed that you have solar and storage. We'd like to have access to your battery from time to time. We can still credit you the $3,000 and have access to that and bring your system into the VPP, even though you've had it for 1 or 2 or 3 years. So it's not one or the other. One literally lays on top of the other, and it's an additional channel and additional revenues on top of what we're currently doing.
How important is the next generation product for shareholders that are watching and hoping for the best in the near term? How important is it that we get this next generation product to market in the coming quarters?
It's very important, and I'll explain to you why. We came out of the gate with a 5 kilowatt modular product. And what we were told 3.5 years ago, no one's going to buy that. It's too big. No one's going to put a 5 kilowatt battery on the side of their house. And then we had a 5 kilowatt product. And if you remember, we did it in a modular format so that you could add battery capacity. We even went so far as to design a second 5 kilowatt product that we called the Evolve 2.0, which again was a slicker looking 5 kilowatt product. However, fast forward 3 years, modular products are no longer allowed in the US market. And 5 kilowatt products are now an entry level product, really a little bit small for VPPs and grid infrastructure. So we came out with the 10 kilowatt product whole home. Now, the new generation product, the reason why it's so exciting to us, it's a tower format where you can use 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, single phase, 3 phase. It accounts for all of it. But importantly, we've gone through the fire propagation testing. So we can put in a 48 to 50 inch space a 15 kilowatt product by 40 kilowatt hours. Now think about this from an infrastructure play. The utility wants more power, they want more capacity as they start flexing these battery systems. EVs are really starting to gain traction. That's going to stress the grid out. You want these assets on the grid. So we will then have a 5 kilowatt product, a 7.5, a 15, and a 22, all at varying capacity sizes. So the next generation product is key.
That's throughput?
That's right.
22 kilowatt throughput.
Correct. The 3-phase tower system. Because we're seeing the shift to infrastructure, right? And the 5 kilowatt, which was too big 3 years ago, is too small today. And a couple other things that I'll put in, because I do want to give some props to the development team and kind of what Daljeet's done. We all know the hiccups that we went through COVID certification on the 10K product. I think we've hashed that out, I think, Steve, in the past. In the meantime, Daljeet's gone through CSA certification and Intertech certification for our lab. So as we look at new products and right-sizing applications for grid infrastructure, we can certify a lot faster than we could previously. And we do expect these types of products to hit the market later this summer. And we're quite excited about them, and we hope the shareholders are as well.
Are we looking at certification for the new generation products?
We want this in market later this summer.
Okay.
To give you an idea of where it stands today, we have working, and the project name is Nirvana. The product is not going to be called Nirvana, but the project name is Nirvana. We have working Nirvana systems in the lab in Calgary right now. We've already gone through all of the testing. So now it's just getting through with our certifier.
Who's going to be manufacturing the new units?
They'll come out of Omega.
Okay.
Yeah, in San Jose. Yep.
All right, so Justin, let's wrap it up from there. For shareholders who are watching, what's the big takeaway that you want them to walk away with from watching this interview?
What we want them to understand is the distribution pipeline and what happens as you go through that process. 1, 2, you want to watch the leading indicators, which is the number of people being trained. That's who's selling the actual product. Those are two very different things. And as we opened up distribution channels, that's a 6 to 9 month process that we walk through, and you get vetted and they invest in you and you say, hey, You got the production capacity. Love that. You got the sales team that's going to support us. Love that. I've tested your product out. Love that. That's 6 to 9 months. That's what we started a year ago coming through these national distributors. The key thing, though, is Eguana University. That's the training. We've completely refined that model so that we can build more loyalty with the installer base, which is the people who actually sell our product. That's the key. But you have to go through that distribution process first. We've checked that box now with a number of national distributors. Now you want to see how many people are being trained. Are we building our sales force? Train an individual, new person selling at the kitchen table, new sales guy. Now, why do you want to see that significant growth on training? Because of the VPPs that are coming in. This is what we saw in the European market years ago. Slow uptake on energy storage, individual people buying it for self-consumption. Great to have as an early adopter. Utilities start getting involved, start giving money back to the homeowner. Now you're seeing it ramp up. We saw attachment rates of 10%, then 20. Utilities get in 30, 40, 50. That's what we're starting to see in the market here. So go through distribution, refine the training programs for the installers, train more people, have more people selling before the VPPs and the utilities come in. And when that happens, mass adoption, you are square in the center of it. And for Eguana, we'll have the hardware sale and the recurring sale. So the key thing I would say to the shareholders, keep a close eye on the number of people that we're training through Eguana University, because that's the leading indicator to the number of people we have selling in the marketplace. Revenue obviously follows as that number grows. So I would say those are the key takeaways.
And that's something we would likely see on the quarterly financial statements, or is that something you'll be updating in news releases?
Both, actually. So that's going to be as we start to standardize leading indicators and KPIs. 2 KPIs: how many individual users have we signed up into the training modules? How many individual users have we passed through the training modules? Those 2 numbers are the key numbers to understand the growth rate of the boots on the ground selling our technology into the marketplace.
Okay, well, thanks so much for hopping on here, Justin, and please keep coming on here to update us as there's new developments.
We've got some coming down the pipeline, Steve, so hopefully I can get on each time we pump something out. We do want to make sure that any confusion that I may cause, I'm happy to jump on and clear it up. So good to see you, and let's do it again soon.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you could do me a big favor, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let us know what you think in the comment section.